Hello, everybody. My name is DeForest B. Soares Jr. I'm the senior pastor of the First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens in Somerset. Been here 30 years. And during those 30 years, I also had the honor of serving as New Jersey's 30th Secretary of State. And therefore, I am completely in awe of what's about to happen because I have, for the first time, an opportunity to speak in public with the current New Jersey Secretary of State, who is a brilliant attorney and whose job is probably the most challenging this job has ever been in light of the elections that are coming up during this COVID-19 season, during pandemic. We've never had an election at a time like this, but we're in capable hands in New Jersey, and our Secretary of State, Tahesha Wade, is going to walk us through what to expect. First of all, Secretary Wade, thank you for being a part of this outreach and this educational webinar.
Well, thank you, Pastor Secretary Soares, for having me. And, you know, it's always great to be with my fellow New Jersey secretaries. You have left such a legacy upon this state, and I thank you for inviting me to talk about this 2020 general election, because we have to move democracy forward, even when we're facing a public crisis, a public health crisis, I should say, but we also want to be mindful and check our civic health, if you know where I'm coming from. So it's important for our voters to understand the differences and how this election is getting conducted.
Well, anytime you do something for the first time, it's nerve-wracking. You're subject to great scrutiny. And this year being a presidential election that is saturated with all kinds of controversies and speculation, I'm glad I'm former, and I'm happy to know that you are the current Secretary of State. So talk to us about the November election and the dynamics in light of the fact that we're doing it differently this time than we've ever done it before, with an emphasis on this ballot in the mail business. Talk about the November election.
Okay. I know we have a PowerPoint presentation for our viewers to see. So first things first, again, given that we are experiencing a pandemic, the key here is we want to make certain that democracy is moving forward, but we want to make sure that not only our voters, but of course, poll workers are being kept safe. So to get this going, all active registered voters in New Jersey are receiving or have received their ballots in the mail. This election is getting conducted primarily by vote by mail. Just this Tuesday was the voter registration deadline. I'm hoping that there's a good number of folk who are mindful of this. I have to say, we launched online voter registration, and we actually had over 400, about 400,000
Wow.
individuals who actually accessed our online voter registration. They either registered for the first time or they updated their voter registration information, which is also key because we want to make sure there's consistency in our records. Now, everyone needs to be mindful of our portal, vote.nj.gov. That is where you could go to check what's going on with all things elections. Now, in addition to the vote by mail process, there will be 50% of our polling locations available for voters if they so choose to vote in person. Please, everyone, understand that you will have to vote using a paper provisional ballot. And the hope is if you do decide to go to one of your designated polling locations, in those locations you can find on your local elections websites or by going to our vote.nj.gov website. Do understand, go there if you did not receive a mail-in ballot, or go there if you really desire to vote in person, but the vote by mail option is available. Now, for others who decide to go to the polling locations, this would be for individuals who are requiring accommodations because they have a disability and they need to vote by means of a voting device.
Well, coming into the 2004 presidential election, I was the chairman of the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. And the big issue that we faced, the first public hearing that I ever presided over on the federal level, was around voting machines and the whole idea of having a paper trail or the lack thereof in the electronic voting systems. And so this year, we don't have to worry about that because every ballot will be paper. And so there's no question about whether or not, in fact, the vote that was cast has a paper trail. However, I did speak to a couple of people who needed a little help in understanding how to fill out their vote by mail. You want to just walk us through that process?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for bringing out that fine point that with the vote by mail, with the provisional paper ballots, that is a secure way of ensuring that votes are cast. Now, how do you fill out a vote by mail ballot? We have 4 simple steps: vote, sign, seal, return. So you vote, you fill in the oval, then you complete your ballot. You sign, you fill it in after you fill that in and sign the certificate. And it is very important. Please sign the certificate. And as it's saying right at the top, do not detach. Seal, place the ballot into the certificate envelope and then place that envelope into, and this is a good thing, there's no excuses, I can't find the stamp, etc. You place that envelope into the prepaid mailing envelope and then you return. Vote and seal, return.
Yeah, this is good. We want to talk about this return issue in a minute, but following instructions is very important, because what we don't want people to do is to have their ballots invalidated simply because of the way they did or did not complete their form. And so this is very good. It's clear. I've looked at the ballots. They're easy to understand, but you do have to take time and answer all the questions and sign that name. Now, we've had national news around the post office and the postal service and whether or not we have enough postal capacity to get the ballots there in time. And although this year we probably won't know the outcome of many races on election night, we can increase the likelihood of our ballots being delivered where they should be if we follow specific instructions. So let's take a little time to talk about how to return the ballot after we've made sure we've filled out the ballot correctly.
Yes, very much important. And the good thing about us in New Jersey is that we have the 4 options. First, in the mail, it must be postmarked on or before 8 p.m. by November 3rd and received by your county's boards of elections on or before November 10th. Our recommendation, if you decide to mail back your vote by mail ballot, please do not delay. Get it in the mail as soon as possible. 2, secure ballot drop boxes. You can place your ballot in one of your county secure ballot drop boxes by 8 p.m. on November 3rd. I know that's how I voted in the primary, and that's how I intend to vote in this cycle. 3, Board of Elections Office. You can deliver your ballot in person to your County Board of Elections Office again by 8 p.m. on November 3rd. And then finally, at your designated polling location, you can actually bring your completed ballot to your polling place by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 3rd. And what is of importance is for voters to know that if you decide to bring your completed ballot to a polling place, remember it can only be you and no one else, not a family member, not a friend, who can bring your ballot to that designated polling place on Election Day.
That's great. Let's go to the video.
Yes.
Here are some easy step-by-step instructions on how to complete your vote-by-mail ballot to make sure your vote counts. Look inside the envelope you receive in the mail for these items: the ballot, an inner envelope with an attached certificate, and a postage-paid mailing envelope. Completely fill in the oval next to each of your selections in blue or black ink. Fill in and sign the certificate, keeping it attached to the inner envelope. Place the ballot into the certificate envelope. Then place the certificate envelope into the prepaid mailing envelope. Either return your ballot by mail, deliver it to your County Board of Elections office, place it in one of the secure ballot drop boxes located throughout your county, or bring it to your polling place. Remember, only you, the voter, can bring your ballot to your polling place on Election Day. No matter how you return your ballot, make sure it's returned no later than 8 p.m. on November 3rd. That's vote, sign, seal, and return by 8 p.m. on November 3rd. Safe, simple, secure. Go to vote.nj.gov for more information.
I love that. You know, you're having fun. I didn't have fun like this when I was secretary.
I think you had more fun than me. You weren't going through this.
No, this is excellent. And it's something that people can share with each other. And I like this. I like the creativity. I like the clarity. And listen, folks, you heard the presentation, black or blue ink. You know, I know, Secretary, I have a friend who only uses purple pens. Everything they do is purple. And people like red and all of these exotic colors. But it has to be black or blue ink. Folks, listen to that. Take this advice. All right. That's a great video.
Yes. Why, thank you. And also, before we move away, I just want to remind voters to make sure they check the back of their ballots, or there may be a second page which has your public questions on the ballot. So just make sure you go through your materials carefully and read all of the instructions, vote, sign, seal, and then return.
Yeah, you know, that public question is critical. I did a radio presentation just last week, and I was talking about the fact that elections are not just about the president. We have other federal officers, Congress, we've got local officials, and we have public questions. And in New Jersey, what should be of great interest to everybody is the question of legalizing marijuana. I think they call it cannabis now. Young people call it weed. But I think voting has got to expand beyond our focus on the presidential election, although that's important. But we can vote on all of those subjects. I was telling some folks also that you can write in. I wrote my name in one time, Secretary, for an election and won. I won't go into it, but it was in my area. No one was running for county committee, so I wrote my name in to be county committeeman. And the next thing I knew, I got a package with my oath of office in the mail.
See, you're a case in point. And, you know, it's very important that everyone recognizes, yes, presidential elections are important, but you said it right. Who are the people who you see in
That's
your local supermarket. You see your local council members, your school board members, your county commissioners, who
right.
you really can engage in on policy discussions, if you will. So it's very important, and everyone needs to realize that yes, we have the federal structure of government, we have the higher level positions on state, but the local folks, when they receive the grants, they're the ones who play a role in decision making on how those grant dollars will go out to the communities. So it's very much important.
Right. So now I've received my ballot in the mail. I've completed my ballot. I signed it. I used a black or blue pen. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I've taken it to one of your depositories in each county, which, by the way, are all secured. And you promised the state, I've heard you say this, that every ballot location for early voting is secured, and they pick them up, and so the chain of custody is intact. That's a federal requirement for voting. Now, once I put it in the box, how do I know that my ballot is ultimately going to be counted, that my vote is really a vote? How do I track my ballot?
Well, that is a fine question, and many ask that. So we do have the track your ballot link at vote.nj.gov. You can go there to track your ballot. Just sign up, create an account. You will need one of the following: either your driver's license number, your last 4 digits of your social, or the voter ID number, which is found on Am I Registered, our page on that site. And we've noted that active registered voters have been mailed and are still, to my understanding, getting mailed their ballots. But if you have not received, and I know the PowerPoint is indicating October the 12th, but anytime mid-October, later this week, next week, if you have not received your ballot and you know you are registered, you have been voting every year, there's no issues in terms of your address, etc., you should contact your local county clerk. Look, I've been saying this to voters throughout the entire state.
Yeah.
Elections should not be considered a spectator sport. There's no need for anyone who is eligible to be sitting on the sideline. We need the active participants. It's good to be a voter, but you have to be an informed voter. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to give us a call at 877-NJ-VOTER. Go to our website, or even contact your local county election folk.
So, Madam Secretary, this is so good. We've come a long way, because voting in America has not always been a priority of government officials. It's been a priority of the political parties. But I'm pleased to see that you, as the Chief Elections Officer for the state of New Jersey, have really implemented a robust system, particularly during times like these, but to make it as easy as possible to vote. I mean, voter suppression, it doesn't have to be explicit. Sometimes voter suppression is just a default effect of elections officials not doing comprehensive work. And this is what you've done is really set the example for what it looks like to make voting accessible for as many people as possible. Let me back up just a half step. You talked about how to track your ballot. How do those 400,000 people who registered online track their registration? How can they be sure that their online registration really registered in the county of their residence?
Well, one of two things. Once they had completed their online voter registration, if there was an issue, they would get the notice after their submission. But they, again, can check their county board of elections, who I also believe should be, should have advised to them that their registration has gone through. But as I said moments ago, I think that it becomes incumbent upon all of us as voters to take the lead. And if we have not updated our information, that's when we should, just like any in the course of any sort of business, personal business that we have, we don't look for the third party to call us to update the information. It becomes our responsibility to note and change and update our information. And if we have any questions to check a status, it also becomes incumbent upon us to contact whomever it should be. Getting to your point as to the voter suppression, that is very important, because I know that one of the major forms of voter suppression comes when a voter is misinformed.
Right.
So we want to, and I thank you for pointing out, this administration, the governor is all about opening up democracy, making sure that it is robust, that it is available to our voters. I know I see voting and elections like the two sides of a coin. One side is protection, the other side is accessibility.
Great, great. That's why I'm so glad you are the Secretary of State. In addition to voter suppression, which is a very important issue that we stay focused on, there are those who are concerned about election fraud. Now, I did a study back in the early 2000s, on the federal level, and found very little evidence of election fraud. But one of the areas that is suspected to be wrought with election fraud is the area when one person votes, particularly in an environment like this, and someone else actually delivers their ballot on their behalf. And I think we call them bearers. So could you talk a little bit about bearers to assure us that A, there's an option to use a bearer, but B, it's protected and it is not likely to be a location for fraud?
Yes, and thank you for highlighting that, there is no evidence of any widespread voter fraud. We look at the 5 states nationally who conduct their elections exclusively
Right.
by vote by mail. And that's why we have chain of custody. That's why every envelope has the unique barcode to track your ballot. That's why we sign our ballots for signature verification. So thank you for that. Now, the bearer is a person who transports a completed vote by mail ballot for someone else. In our state, by law, bearers are limited to 3 ballots per election. The bearer must sign the bearer portion of the outer envelope of the ballot in the presence of the voter when taking custody of the ballot. And I know that it's been asked, can I deliver more than 1 ballot to the Board of Elections or ballot drop boxes? So the response is, if the bearer is hand delivering the ballot to the County Board of Elections, they can. And he or she must show ID and sign the bearer book. However, and this is very important, everyone out there, you as a voter are the only individual who can return your ballot to your designated polling location. It is as if you were walking into a polling location on a normal basis and voting in a voting booth. You can't take bearers with you, okay? So it is only you. In terms of Board of Elections, ballot drop boxes, there you can be a bearer. But at the polling location, you cannot do the bearer system.
Okay, I think you've made that crystal clear.
I'm just setting the record straight.
Yeah, no, it's very important.
Mr.
It's very
Secretary.
important for people to get this because, voting is the cornerstone of our democracy. And
Mhm.
if we don't know how to vote, when to vote, where to vote, then we are outsiders in a system that depends on us. And all of these small issues are important. There are people in nursing homes. There are people who are sick at home, maybe people in quarantine that need a bearer. And
Mhm.
for instance, in our church, we have an adopt a senior program. And through
Nice.
that program, we may discover that some seniors just can't complete the form alone and can't
Mhm.
get out to mail it. And so this bearer function is important, but it has to be handled in the appropriate way. So thank you for this explanation. And again, folks, if you have any questions about any of
Mhm.
this, go to the website or call on the phone and get the answer to your question. Um,
And if I may, just in case voters are calling, phone lines, and there's no one available, etc., we do have FAQs on our website,
Good.
which really answer the questions, the general questions that are normally come up with voters. So they could utilize that tool too.
Yeah, we will heavily promote your website address
Mhm.
throughout. Now, I want to make a confession. You didn't know me back in these days. You were probably in preschool, but when I was broke and couldn't pay my bills, one of my tricks was to I would mail a check to the credit card company, but not sign it, and then they would mail it back and say, "Well, you forgot to sign." And that was my way in my head of buying time because I was too broke to pay all my bills. I'm not recommending that. I'm just confessing.
So,
Uh, but there are people who, unlike me, forget to sign documents and may forget to sign their ballot,
Mhm.
and it's not on purpose. And so what happens? That's I want to talk about the fact that if that happens, there is a way to cure the problem in time to actually vote. So can you talk about how that curing process works?
Yes, we started this in the primary, and it is definitely an important measure to make sure that all votes are counted and no one is improperly disenfranchised. And not only if you neglect to put your signature, oftentimes our signatures change in life.
Right. Right.
So, and we may not sign things the way that we normally do. So, if this has been the case, you will receive a letter, a call, or even an email saying that your ballot or provisional ballot was missing, or a signature, or that the signature did not match. And they're going to ask, this is your county folk, will ask for additional information. And these is what is called the cure letters. So if this comes your way, um, please be responsive to it, but be responsive in a timely fashion, because voters will have up until November the 18th
Oh,
to cure any irregularity in terms of the signature. So please, this is another portion of voting. If you receive this notice, do not delay.
yeah, that's a fact. If you registered to vote 30 years ago, chances are your signature today won't match your signature
No.
from 30 years ago. And
Mhm.
you've got human eyes trying to compare the two. So don't be offended. Don't assume that,
Mhm.
they're picking on you. Just make sure you get it done because reasonable people can come to the conclusion that you may not be you. And again, one of the areas of election fraud is when someone
Mhm.
votes in someone else's name, and we're trying to protect the integrity of the democratic process with these secure letters. The other thing I want to point out, Madam Secretary, is that
Mhm.
while you are the chief elections officer for the state, the counties are the administration headquarters for elections. And so that's why the secretary keeps talking about the county board of elections. She's in charge of the whole state, but in terms of where your name is located and who's responsible for the integrity of your ballot, that's the county. Now, you would be surprised, Madam Secretary, a lot of people in New Jersey don't know what county they live in. And if you don't know the county you live in, you should Google your town and Google the state and find out what county you live in. Because if you live in Ocean County, you can call Middlesex all you want and they won't have your name. So you've got to make sure you're calling the right county to ensure that your voter registration information is correct.
Yes, and another point about recognizing your county. Voters out there, please, if you decide to return your ballot at one of the secure drop boxes, if you live in Passaic, you don't drop it off in Morris.
Right.
Okay? You have to drop it off at your county's, one of your county secure drop boxes.
Right. The county is critical.
Yes.
And I think another question has to do with signature verification. When does the County Board of Elections start verifying the ballot signatures?
Okay, again, by law, the county boards of elections, they'll meet at least 4 days per week, starting on October the 13th, the other day, to begin verifying the signatures.
They've started already.
They've already started.
Yeah.
They've already started to verify the signatures.
Right.
Okay, so everyone needs to make sure that they watch their emails, their the mail, or even if they get a call. And as Pastor Secretary so aptly noted, this has nothing to do against any voter. We are just talking about voter security and integrity here. And we want to ensure that no one is improperly disenfranchised. And the last point I want to make, because Pastor Secretary, you pointed this out about the county election officials, I just want to give them a shout out because they truly are the front lines of our democracy. They're working 24/7. And I think that we need to, recognize their efforts. This is an unprecedented time, and we should be patient towards each and every one of them.
No question about it. These are some of the hardest working folks in America.
Mm-hmm.
You never hear about them until something goes wrong.
Of course.
No.
Of course.
Normally, things go smoothly, and every county elections official wakes up every day praying that they're not in the newspaper. Listen, we're just about out of time. I really appreciate not only your work, but I appreciate this time we've had to spend together. You've been doing this since the primaries, and that's why I think this system should be trusted, because this is not your first time around. I think you put together the structure. It worked in the primary. We had no major flaws in the primary, and so we have confidence in the general. But you do have a couple of frequently asked questions that you've noted and that you wanted to answer during our time. So you can do that now.
Yes, just quickly, the FAQ's major question, can I vote in person? Yes, paper provisional ballot. But if you have the disability that prevents you from voting on the paper ballot, you'll use an accessible voting device. Again, what should I do if I make a mistake, damage, or lose my vote by mail? This happens all the time. If you have done this, you can request a replacement vote by mail ballot from your local county clerk. But again, request it stat. And this is important. How can I be a poll worker on election day? I have to say that New Jersey should be proud. I mention this individual often because I have been so impressed by her. Unfortunately, she left us, but she hails from Princeton. Her name is Laura Wooten.
Right.
And to my understanding, she historically is the nationally longest serving poll worker. She served for 79 years. She was an African-American woman who served as a poll worker, even when folk like me, like you, Pastor Secretary, could not even vote.
Right.
So if she could perform that civic responsibility and do it for 79 years, and we're at a time, and that poll workers, majority are, advanced in age, respectfully. So, we're trying to recruit the younger, the healthier, able-bodied folk to take upon that civic responsibility, but they need to do this ASAP. Go to vote.nj.gov. And we're looking for citizens, again, of all ages, the college students. We even have coordinated with the New Jersey State Bar Association for law students and for the younger members of the bar. And of course, there's training that's required. So if anyone has an interest, they can go to our website.
Yeah, we couldn't have an American election without these volunteer poll workers who most often their only compensation is some cold pizza during the day or at night. And they really are the pillars of our democracy. And I was stunned to see how difficult it has become to recruit younger people to be poll workers. And so I commend your effort again to ensure that we have sufficient human resources on election day. If we had to pay salaries to everyone who worked on elections, we wouldn't have the money to do it. And so please, if you care about voting and you care about elections, it doesn't matter what party you're part of, you've got to have an election for either party to win. So sign up. As we hasten to a close here, Madam Secretary, one of the differences I think this year will be the excuse me, the timetable surrounding dates and outcomes relative to this election. We just aren't going to have a winner certified by 10 o'clock November 3rd in the presidential or any other race. So could you just kind of walk us through? We know the ballots have already been mailed. We know that the voter registration has already been closed. So walk us through the rest of the key dates that we need to be mindful of.
Yes, I just want to highlight October the 23rd is the deadline for inactive voters to make an application for their ballots to be mailed to them. Okay, you got to be mindful of the mail stream. November 3rd, of course, is D-Day, it's election. And you want to, again, make sure your ballots, if you're mailing them, are postmarked by November 3rd. But everybody, please, this is no time to delay, okay? And say, okay, I'll send it off, it's election day. No, do not do that, okay? November 18th, as I had mentioned, this is the deadline for voters to cure their irregularities in terms of a signature on their ballot. November the 23rd is when the counties will submit results to my office. By November 9th, I am due by law to certify the elections. And then December 14th by law is when the Electoral College meets.
So be clear, people, the actual winner is not the actual winner until the Secretary of State certifies the election, and that happens December 9th. So it doesn't matter what the news media says. It doesn't matter what's on Facebook or Twitter. This woman, the Secretary of State, Tahesha Way, is the only person who can announce the winner of the November 3rd election. Now, here's what I like about you. When I was Secretary of State, most of the secretaries of state in America were elected to office.
Yeah.
And I was not. I was appointed by the governor in New Jersey. The state constitution authorizes the governor to appoint the Secretary of State. And what we assume, I think what people may assume, is that if you're appointed by the governor, you are beholden to the governor politically. But what they don't understand is that while you're appointed by the governor, the only way you can be removed is by the Senate voting you out. You have to be impeached by the Senate, and you have to be impeached for doing something illegal or highly irregular, which means that in many ways, your office, like the office of Attorney General, has some independence. The governor cannot fire you just unilaterally, like he can other cabinet members. And you have been beholden to your authentic independence and have treated this office in an impartial and nonpartisan way. Some of the problems we have around the country are due to the fact that these elected secretaries of state are beholden to the party that got them in office. And so in many ways, having an appointed Secretary of State under this construct protects democracy in our state in ways that people would not imagine. And you have been loyal to the principle of independence and impartiality. Your staff, your team has been marvelous in serving all political spectrums and parties. And I want to commend you for that. Do you have any closing words or announcements or requests that you'd like to make?
Well, before I do that, I just want to again say thank you. This was an engaging conversation, Pastor Secretary, and I just feel honored and privileged. I've watched you when you were secretary, and the one thing I could say about you is the value you placed on empowerment and impact. And I see my role as Secretary of State being that person or voice to have our residents, no matter what political party they are, understanding that voting, that civics is about impact and empowerment of yourself and also of others. This year, aside from COVID and everything else that has gone on, I truly view that this year, could really be looked at as one of the years of our democracy for three reasons. Of course, we have the federal election. All elections are important. Secondly, we've wound down now on the US Census, another way to have your voice heard. And then thirdly, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed women, at least on paper, the right to vote. Now, I understand and we recognize that women such as Black women, Hispanic women, Native American women, Asian American women still did not have that right, if you will, to vote. And so I just hope that our voters understand all of the things that is going on in our democracy that's significant and important this year, and that they go and vote. There are options. Again, I say do not delay. Yes, there's November 3rd, but still understand just that significance of the voice in your vote. And so I also go back to what you noted in terms of election results. And yes, everyone remains hopeful. Races may or may not be announced on November 3rd, but we have to be patient because we want to make sure that every properly cast vote is counted. And you so correctly noted that the certification of official results on a regular election always occurs weeks thereafter. I certify state and federal elections weeks thereafter.
Right.
So thank you for having me. Everyone, remember to go to our website, vote.nj.gov, or you can call 877 NJ voter, and blessings your way, Pastor Secretary.
Well, you make me proud to know that you're sitting in the seat that I sat. You're doing a marvelous job. I'm honored that you would take this time, and I'm committed to supporting your leadership in whatever way I can. We want to get the word out for this, but civic engagement is even more than voting. And so anytime I or my staff can be of value to your leadership, we just consider us an extension of your team. God bless you.
Well,
There you have it. Those who are watching, this is New Jersey's outstanding, dynamic Secretary of State, Tahesha Way. We're proud to have her. Get to know her. Go to her website, and for God's sake and for the sake of our country, vote on November 3rd. God bless you.
thank you. Blessings to you.